It's no secret that writing can be lonely work, but does it really have to be? Whether you're full-time, part-time, or just starting out, you'll get insights into the tricks, tips, and production habits of writers from every level of the biz. From best-selling authors to those launching their first novels, you're sure to be in the company of friends as we encourage great writers to divulge and share their secrets. This is the Great Writers Share podcast with your host, best-selling author, Daniel Wilcox.
Hi there, my name is Daniel Wilcox and welcome to the Great Writers Share podcast, where I have made it my mission to speak to some of the most successful, generous and wise writers the business has to offer. Every week I'm going to be bringing on guests from a range of genres, disciplines, success levels, walks of life, genders, ages, star signs and postcodes to tease out what makes these writers tick, how they tackle their approach to productivity and how they strategize and define their success. Now, when it came around to kicking off this podcast, I could think of no one better to join me than my good buddy Luke Kondor. Luke Kondor is someone who I have written several books with, someone who I've worked with on various projects, including writing courses and podcasts. He's the former lead host of the Story Studio podcast, which we worked on together last year. And the year or so before that, made 50 episodes interviewing different people. And it's because of him that we are here right now. And I am continuing on our legacy in his honour. In this discussion, we cover a whole range of subjects. And Luke's always a really interesting guy to talk to. We cover how he made an award-winning film in 7 days with no budget and no resources. We looked at how does he journal and what does that habit look like and how does that keep him productive. What does it mean to be experimental as a creative? And we go into so much more. But before we start and get into the interview, and since this is the first full show of the podcast, I wanted to remind anyone who listened to episode 0 of this podcast, or even anyone that hasn't, not that you can remind people that haven't, but we'll skip past that if you find yourself enjoying this podcast and want to get more each week, then there's a place you can do that. So I've opened up a Patreon page, which is live as of the time of release. So if you head over to www.patreon.com/greatwritersshare, that's patreon.com/greatwritersshare, you'll be able to get early access to every single one of these episodes. You'll gain access to our private Slack group and get supported by other writers within this community. It's one of the things I very much want to do here is just build a community of other writers, and in that group you will have support from every writer that works with CLEAVER, and get involved in monthly giveaways and ask upcoming guests any burning questions you may have. So there's lots of opportunities to get more involved into the show, to find out the things you really want to find out, because I really want to make this podcast for you and shape it around the people who are listening so you guys can get the most benefit out of this you possibly can. So if you fancy just helping support the show, I'm doing this for free. It's going to be free forever, he said, touch wood, until I sell out. But the show will be forever free. It's a passion project. I'm enjoying speaking to the people, and I just want you to get as much value as possible. So to do that and support the show, you can go over to www.patreon.com/greatwritersshare, and that's writers plural. Now, without further ado, here's the first ever and wide-ranging and ever-interesting interview with my good friend and buddy, Luke Kondor. Luke Kondor is a podcaster, comic creator, filmmaker, and best-selling author. His short film Keith, a film made with no ideas, no money, and no camera, went on to win the best low-budget short film at the London Film Festival and has since been played the world over. His work with Hawk and Cleaver's The Other Stories podcast has brought in over 3 million downloads internationally, and he has dabbled in post-apocalyptic fiction, bringing the immensely weird and wonderful El Marvo to life through a successful Kickstarter campaign, and has reached the top of the Amazon charts with his best-selling series The Rot, written alongside a wonderful man called Daniel Wilcox. Luke's credentials include 2 Vimeo staff picks, Grand Prix in the short fest, it's a mouthful, first prize at 5 Lamps 24-hour film competition, and audience choice at Focus Film Festival, not to forget the aforementioned best low-budget short film at the London Short Film Festival. Luke is also part owner of the independent story studio Hawk and Cleaver, and happens to be one of my best friends, inspirations, and co-writers. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hello. Is it my turn to do your intro now?
You can do
Daniel
my
Wilcox
intro.
is I'm not going to be prepared. He's a cracking chap.
Just
Daniel Wilcox is say again.
Just spit it off the cuff.
Daniel Wilcox is a cracking chap. He can do backflips and he can scale mountains, I assume.
I've never scaled a mountain. I've scaled mental mountains, but never
mental mountains. Word mountains. You can scale word mountains.
You do a word mountain in a heart.
Yeah.
How's it going? Welcome to the show.
I'm good, man. If I explode with sneezes, that's not my fault. That's the pollen count's fault. So I have to apologise up front
That
for
little
that.
lady in your ear decides to scream.
Yeah.
More no. But yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. This is the first one for the Great Writer Share podcast, and I deliberately picked you first because you're an interesting guy. I've known you for a while, and you've kind of done a lot of stuff. But you know, we talk a lot as friends, but I don't think we've ever kind of like unpicked some of it. So I'm gonna try and like rip you apart and piece you back together and see how we go. How does that sound?
Are you going to buy me dinner first, or is this going to get straight in? Okay.
Just gonna get straight in there. Not gonna mess around.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start with Keith, as we all do. Can you tell us a little bit about Keith, what you did with it, and why you think it was so successful?
Okay. So, well, I have to go a little bit further back. I was trying to make stuff. I was making short films and I was writing short scripts and making short stories and publishing them on Amazon and that kind of thing. But I was very, very slow and very self-conscious, and I just kind of felt quite stilted in what I was doing. And so I decided to start a podcast called Luke's Massive Storytelling Podcast Fee. And the whole idea of that was that I would do 7-day story challenges, and I would keep a journal, like a podcast journal, as I was doing these things. So I'd say, right, in 7 days, I'm going to write and publish a 10,000 word short story, or in 7 days, I'm going to make a short film and then I'm going to put it online after the 7 days. So I set myself these kind of ludicrous challenges, and the idea really was to sort of kickstart, not because I was okay coming up with ideas and starting projects, but not so great at finishing them. So the idea really was to kickstart the habit of finishing stuff and putting it out in front of people, because the only way you get better and learn how to make stuff is by putting it in front of people's eyes and getting genuine opinions, rather than just like your mother or whoever. And
Family don't make good critics.
No, yeah. So I was doing this podcast and it was going quite well. I mean, it wasn't getting a massive amount of downloads. I think it's only 20 downloads a week or something, but it was enough to hold me accountable, because I knew I couldn't let those 20 people down. Couldn't just set something up and then just not finish it. So I the first one I did was a short story, and then the short film, I didn't really know how I was going to do it. I was living in London at the time. I'd only just moved there, so I didn't have really any friends or any equipment or any way really of making a film.
Sounds like a perfect setup.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, you've got to put yourself in a corner. So I was, I'd seen a lot of those tutorial videos. You get a lot of people talking about, so if you want to, here's how you delete your cache from your Mac. You go to the settings, you see a screen, and then the cursor, there's a really nervous guy talking about, and then you go to the bit there, but I mean, they do a lot of it, and it's very helpful. But they use a screen capture software to do that. So I saw the screen capture software and I thought, well, that's a camera in itself. I could use that. And by the way, this isn't so original anymore. There's quite a few films that have used this technique, and they're getting better and better at it. But at the time, there wasn't really anything. So I used the screen capture software. I used free trials for editing software and royalty-free music. And I decided to make a film about tech support, really. So I've worked in tech support a lot, and one of the ways we do it is by remoting into someone's machine. We take over their machine and we go through their files and delete stuff and change stuff. So I thought it's quite an eerie thing to happen to you when you see someone going through your stuff and rearranging your life, because our lives are pretty much 90% on our computers these days. So I made this film in 7 days, and I've got to tell you, about 2 days in, I was like hit by such a wave of inspiration. I just knew that I was working, I was getting up at 5 a.m. and working away till day job work. Lunchtime, I was working away, and then straight after finished work, I was just making this film, could not stop. And I just knew that there was something kind of special about it. Something was working. And then when it got to the end of the week, I put it online, and I remember showing Kat this film, who had to play. I had to play myself in the film because didn't have time to make social media accounts for fake people. Kat had to play my Kat, my fiance, had to play Kat, the fiance, in the film. And we put it online, and it was we went sort of got some action on Reddit quite easily. I just said I made this film in 7 days. What do people think? And then Vimeo picked it up, put it on their homepage, and then it went on the homepage of Dig, and it just seems it's got a life all of its own now, and it just really ticks along. $50,000 in the first week. It's played at film festivals all over the world. I've been invited to Germany to sort of screen it and do some cool stuff. Someone got in touch with me a little while back, a teacher, like a screenwriting school in LA. So can we use the scripts for Keith as teaching materials for a course? And I said, yeah, it's fine, but it's not really a script. And I think when I sent them, they were like, yeah, we can't use this because it's not a script at all. It's just like a brainstorm. That's all it was.
Yeah.
I didn't want to write a script and then make the film. I had to write and make it at the same time. Just the last week I sold the licensing for a new website, and that's a nice little pay packet. So it's one of those films. It's one of those things that just keeps on giving. And I sort of I didn't know it would do, but I just knew that there was something that was quite not pleasing about it. But I knew there's something about watching the film that was, even I was enjoying watching it as I was making it. And the reason I had to finish it is because I really wanted to see where it went. So I knew I was onto something, and it's obviously resonated with not just me but other people. And that's Keith.
Yeah. So do you think the inspiration for that came out of the challenge itself, or do you think at some point that idea might have come out of your brain anyway? Because I mean, people are often saying that if you actually commit to an idea to start with, even if you don't have that full inspiration, you'll find that inspiration as you go through, because you're investing in the product that you're creating. Do you think there was an element of that, or do you think it was just kind of like a lot of serendipity as it came together?
Well, so so I'd seen the screen capture software at some point before, and I'd logged it in my mind somewhere that's a tool that can be used somewhere along the line. I mean, this is kind of a habit I've got. I'm always looking at tools that could potentially be used in creative projects at some point. There's just never enough time to do anything. Yeah. But so this project, so I knew that was what I was going to have to do, but I really had no idea about anything else other than that. And I remember I figured out that you can make like quite interesting glitch effects, and that became quite a big component of a lot of things I've done since then. And that was serendipitous, just finding that glitch effect. I think that really adds a lot to it, and also the music and the sound effects. I don't know. There was a lot of things just coming together in the right way.
Worked pretty well. So jumping back a little bit, so that came from a 7-day challenge. Yeah. And like you said, you've done a few 7-day challenges. And I know that you've met other people, and other people have committed to 7-day challenges. I mean, we've run a few, one together as a mini writing course earlier this year. But where did that idea come from? Because obviously you were saying yourself you wanted to create stuff, and then you started doing those 7-day challenges. But what was the gap in between that kind of motivated you to go, okay, I'm going to get serious. This is what I'm going to do to make that happen?
I'd moved so I'd lived in Derby, a little city in the centre of England, for about 5 years. And I'd made a bit of a community of filmmaking friends, and we'd made short films and music and various business pieces throughout the years. And then when I moved to London, I didn't really have any network. I'd kind of isolated myself. So I knew that I had to use podcasting and the internet. There's always these kind of they must have a name for it, but there's always these sort of communities that creative communities that sort of build up in little areas. There's like in 1920s Paris, is it 20s, where you've got Dali and Hemingway and all these people living in cafes in Paris. I think there's in the late the neo-romantic period, whatever they call it, in Paris again. But there's always like little communities that sort of build up. And I kind of realized that the internet really is that for a lot of people nowadays. So you sort of build your own community, and you keep in touch, and you help each other. Like podcasting is the way to do that, is a tool to do that. It's the way to make friends and create your own network and create your own little creative community where you can feed back to each other and use each other's networks and that kind of thing. So I knew that podcasting was the way to do this. And I also knew that I think I was probably reading Tim Ferriss stuff at the time or something like that. But it's always like accountability was a big thing that I knew I was lacking. So I knew that I could sort of marry those two ideas together to make this new podcast idea. And I just knew that I just needed to get into I knew that if I didn't get into the creative habit of finishing stuff, then I would never do it. I would never get into the habit, and it would just I probably wouldn't have done anything. Hawk and Cleaver wouldn't be a thing. Our writing together wouldn't be a thing. Other stories wouldn't be anything. I mean, you need to start, but you need to finish stuff. It's a big thing.
Yeah, habits an absolutely huge thing. I found that particularly when I started, it wasn't until the habit became a thing that the work started to flow out. It's definitely a difficult thing to actually ironically get into the habit of. How did you sort of approach going into that habit? Because you mentioned that when you were making Keith, you were getting up at 5, which obviously before work and sort of putting in the extra work there. How did you kind of make sure that habit stuck and that you could power through and actually finish what you were trying to create?
So I've kind of realised that it's very soon really. So I know that if I'm interested in the project itself, like if I set myself I sort of know what this project will be when it's finished. If I've got a really clear vision of that, then that's 90% of the work done because I get very angry that it doesn't exist. And so I will just focus on, I just can't stop myself. It becomes like it's a stone in my shoe. I just can't go anywhere without thinking about this thing that needs to be done. So if I can get to that point when I'm really invested and interested in the way a story's coming out, then that's everything that sort of falls into place. And the problem is that that doesn't always work out. You don't always have a clear vision, and sometimes you just need to take a bit more of a painterly attitude to it. So you sort of have to throw some paint on the canvas and add some more, and I don't know if you can erase paint, but you get your paint eraser, you white out.
Yeah, white paint, don't you?
Yeah, sure, yeah. But then, what was the question again? How do you get into the habit of?
How do you make sure that habit sticks?
Well, so accountability is a big thing, and I mentioned that. So, if you're doing it in public, you don't look like you don't want to go out in public and say you're going to do something and not do it because you'll feel like an absolute buffoon. So
that is quite a scary thing to do, though, to bare yourself and to sort of announce to people that you're going to do something. How do you suggest that people who might be a bit wary about doing that for fear of sort of rejection or, I don't know, some social negativity, how do you suggest that people get over that and actually put themselves forward? Because I agree. I think it's definitely one of the best things you can do is to say to everyone you know and love and those that you don't, this is what I'm going to do, this is how it's going to happen, and make yourself accountable. Well,
so I think you sort of first of all have to sort of accept that you will fail. Like, I mean, and you will look like a buffoon several times. But you kind of, I don't know, that gets easier over time. You just get used to it.
It doesn't end your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you realise that it doesn't end your life. And also, you come through these stumbling blocks. Maybe you set yourself a challenge and you fail in public. You say, I'm going to make this thing in a year, and then it doesn't work out for whatever reason. That's fine. I mean, you put your effort into it and you actually tried. As long as you actually try, that's fine. But it's like you have to see yourself as the protagonist in the story. This isn't the whole story. This is the act 1. You have to fall before you get to act 2 and start to go through the hero's journey and learn how to do this better and as finally succeed. Your life is one big Hollywood movie, and you are going to go through many act 1s. You're going to keep going through so many act 1s. Eventually, you'll get a roll into act 2 and then act 3, and then you die, and then
and then that's the beauty of it all.
Yeah, that's the beauty. Yeah.
Now, so we've spoken a little bit about Keith. Obviously, you quite enjoy creating films and writing for films. I actually, just side note, was checking through your website and sort of prep for listening to you the other day and stumbled across Macho Dan. One of the sort of first earliest films, which if anyone wants to check it out, I highly recommend. Sort of because you tend to have you've got a very comical style. I remember when I first came across yourself, looking at, I think it was the hipster that The Hips from Outer Space, the novel.
Yeah.
And sort of reading the self-written reviews that you put on the back for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always that kind of self-effacing, comical tone to the stuff that you do. But then you write some of the darker stuff and the post-apocalyptic and horror stuff with me. I think the question I want to ask really is, how do you kind of stretch yourself between so many different sort of genres and mediums? Because obviously you've got the podcasting, you've got the novel writing, you've got the comics. It's a lot going on.
Yeah, well, I think it's weird when you are told that you have to sort of brand yourself and have a very clear and concise way of doing things, because that's not how it works in reality. What Charlie Brooker was doing, he's a TV presenter. He's not Mr. Black Mirror. He hasn't always been Mr. Black Mirror. He's been a TV presenter for years, and he sort of writes comedies, and he was he wrote comedy articles and stuff for a long time. And then Black Mirror was the thing that took off, and everyone thought of him as like the modern day Rod Serling. And that's cool. But you just really, I believe, you have to follow whatever your passions are. I don't think you should produce yourself too much. And the things that are going to take off are going to take off on their own, and people are going to pick on the certain points of view, the more successful things, think, oh, okay, this guy is the guy that does the post-apocalyptic stuff, or this is the guy that does the stupid comedy stuff, or whatever, and that's fine. I really enjoy it when I find an artist that I really like, and I fall in love with their work, and then I realize there's another aspect to them, like, to go back to Charlie Brooker, that he's not just this sort of dark, near future sci-fi writer. He's also an incredibly charming, funny guy. Like, I feel like we've always got these sort of different aspects to us, and I think if you sort of start closing off one aspect of yourself, it's like trying to keep a monster in the basement. It will get out in some way or another eventually. So just let him out in the garden every now and again. Give him a little project. Let him build a shed.
It's good advice for people trying to build their self brands on social media, because there is a big emphasis at the minute around people trying to be the perfect self, trying to curate themselves into a way in which they see themselves almost as this sort of non-emotional, non-evocative brand. But like you say, sort of authenticity tends to be the key.
Oh yeah, sure. And like I said, I don't think it's up to us to do the branding. I mean, obviously you can help it along. You could sort of mark yourself as a crime thriller author or whatever. And I'm sure that will help you get further faster, potentially. But at the same time, if you're not that all the way, or if you want to use that as a pen name or whatever, I kind of feel like you're not being authentic to yourself, to your own creative voice, and you're sort of, what's the point? If you become incredibly successful in that, but you don't really enjoy that all that much, then you're just going to get told to do more of that. And if you don't enjoy that all that much, then you're going to start hating that pretty soon. And you're going to want to go, oh, I really want to do my passion projects. And that's because you haven't sort of been doing that as well and built yourself up as a multi-genre thing, or a post-medium sort of artist.
How would you describe yourself?
I don't know, because I definitely enjoy more absurd stuff. I am a big fan of sort of absurdity, and even in like the serious stuff, I kind of feel like having a bit of a humor in everything is always fun for me. Especially, I like to laugh as I'm writing, or I like to make myself laugh. But I also really enjoy the darker stuff. I don't know. It's weird. I enjoy a lot of stuff. I guess I see myself as an explorer. A mad scientist. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I did to some extent. I just like to. I think what it is, I like to see things and think that's impossible for me to do that, and then I like to find a way to make it happen. And then when it's done, I'll be like, oh, okay, I can do it. I think it probably comes from some sort of low self-esteem or something. I was probably just, because I was brought up in a small town, I was told you'd never amount to anything. Like, I like to sort of amount to little stuff. Yeah.
Are there any mediums or genres that you haven't yet played with that you're itching to play with, or that you're sort of curious about wanting to explore? maybe a bit of VR?
Oh well, well, games is still something I would love to do some stuff in. I mean, we came close a couple of times with a VR game, but it never really went anywhere. And it's been a couple of things that have been going in the pipeline with game. I like to sort of I love playing games. I love storytelling focused games.
There are some good ones these days.
Yeah, but I mean, comics, films, podcasts. They say in the future that we're going to make art out of like strands of our DNA. Like the idea is that like the mediums are going to change and blur over time. And what we're so focused nowadays on the separation between all the different mediums. I think things are going to get far more interesting now that we're in this weird internet age where you can have an audio podcast to go along with your comic book, so you can read and hear the voice at the same time, or augmented reality, so you can see your comic book moving in front of you. It's an interesting time.
You mentioned a couple of times that you've lived in different cities. You've been to Derby, you've been to London, Manchester. If you don't want me to keep any of these in the podcast, let me know. But obviously at the minute, well, it's public on your website as well, but you're living in Nottingham.
Yeah.
Have you found in any way that sort of traveling between the different cities has been beneficial to your creation? Has it sort of sparked inspiration? Have you drawn different things? I know that when we were working together on sort of Lazarus and the Rot series, that London was quite heavy of a feature within the books itself. But do you find yourself quite strongly drawing inspiration from the different areas?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think, well, I moved around a lot as a kid as well. So I think I've always sort of felt never quite settled. And everywhere I've gone, it's been a big curiosity to sort of look out the window and see what's different about this place where I am right now. The people are different. The landscape's different. So I've always sort of taken note of that. And when I'm writing or when I'm making stuff, the location is always, I always can't help but draw from the place I am at the time, or the place where I was before or have been before. So it is a big thing, and I kind of feel like it's almost like your job as a writer or as a maker of stuff to experience as much as possible, to add that extra element to your own writing. I feel like Gomer, who was talking about this, we're talking about how it was the artist's job to go to the scary cave and experience the dark part of the world, so they can come out and tell everyone about it and inspire people about it, or tell people to go in themselves, or so they can make their own decision about it, or whatever they want to do. But I feel like that's partly our job, really, to explore as much as possible, go traveling, meet weird people, talk to people who don't agree with ourselves.
That's an important one.
Yeah, talk to people who do agree with ourselves, and experience a bit of everything. All the foods, all the ice cream, experience all the good stuff, sure, but you need to go into debt so you can write about the pressures of financial burdens, or I don't know, you need to experience death because that's an important part of life, and you need to be able to talk about it. And we constantly draw all these experiences in, and we churn them up in our brains and vomit them up on the page, and hopefully people want to eat it.
I've actually been thinking a lot about that kind of stuff lately. Because I obviously recently became full-time, so I'm 2 months into full-time writing now, and I'm finding that there are times in my day when I'm sort of really not feeling the writing, but I want to go out and do something. So I have a couple of times explored, not by actually contacting them yet, but sort of played around with the idea in my mind of going to places like mechanics and offering to do like a couple of hours labor in the afternoon as work experience. Just areas that I know that I'm definitely not familiar with, that I kind of want to just understand a bit more, because I think the projects I was working on recently got me writing about oil rigs out in the oceans of Nova Scotia, and that's the furthest thing from anything that I've experienced. But trying to find some bubble of industry that's similar to that would definitely try and be helpful with that writing. But I'll let you know how that goes at some point. Fixing chassis.
I think so. It's a bit weird. So I think some writers, some creators like to use a project as a method of exploring something out of what they haven't explored already.
It's good to write taxes.
And then some writers, I think I'm sort of the inverse of that. Like I use it as a way to try and make sense of what the fuck it is I'm looking at. Like I need to filter it through a sort of process of creation to make sense of what I'm seeing.
Can you give an example?
Well, London was a big one. I think that the hipster books that I wrote completely came out of that. So the first book I wrote was called The Hipster from Outer Space, and it's about an ancient alien being who wakes up in the body of a hipster in East London. And the whole sort of premise of that was this alien being not really being out of place in a city like London, because everyone's kind of insane in London. But through that character's eyes, I was the alien in that city. I was seeing all this crazy, weird stuff happening and trying to make sense of it. So I could just sort of exaggerate that part of me and go through the city as the alien and sort of see things from an alien's perspective.
Nice. How has running affected your writing?
Running is really similar to writing. So the reason why I started writing prose, because I was doing a lot of filmmaking and I was doing a lot of various other bits and pieces, but writing prose, it doesn't matter how much money you've got. It doesn't matter what equipment you've got. It doesn't matter. None of it really matters. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just you inputting words down on the page. And with running, I kind of feel like it doesn't matter what special shoes you've got, if you've got the right bike and the right tires or the right climbing gloves, whatever, the right bowling ball for a big bowling ball that takes all the pins out in one, or a special rocket laser guided bowling ball. It doesn't matter about that kind of stuff. Like the only thing that matters is running the miles. So I kind of feel like the better I get at running and sort of putting the miles under my feet, the more comfortable I am putting the words on the page. It's a weird sort of. Also, when you're writing, sometimes you struggle because your mind is trying to go somewhere else. Your mind is trying to it wants to go on Facebook for a bit, or it wants to go on Twitter for a bit, and it's like, no, I just need to be in this moment and enjoy the writing and sort of concentrate on this. And running's the same. Like you can go to various places. You can't really sort of nip off to the shop or nip to do something else. You sort of have to just keep moving, and that's. And also, it's great to get away from everything and let your mind wander and come up with new ideas and start to piece things together that maybe you hadn't thought of before. The amount of times when I've been out for a run and have sort of realized something and gone, oh, okay, that's how that story ends, or oh, okay, that's how that works, or that'd be good to try that.
Do you use running as a sort of page break while you're fighting with ideas, or do you kind of schedule it into your day and then the ideas happen to come during that period?
I don't think I use it as a tool for writing. I think it is one of those things where I run for the running's sake. So I'll be running so many miles because I'm training for a race or like a longer run at some point. But it still works for the writing. It still sort of adds to it. And also, I mean, the running sort of, I end up writing about running in my writing a lot nowadays.
Very well.
Because that's the experience. Like, it just sort of feeds into it naturally.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's important to try and harness anything that can keep your focus for longer periods. I think research recently said that humans' attention span has basically gone down to 3 seconds, which is less than a goldfish. It might be 2 seconds now, just because of the amount of distractions from your phone, from your computer, from your TVs, from family, from friends. And I think it's not a bad habit at all to try and learn how to flex that muscle and keep it strong.
There's a Kurt Vonnegut short story. I don't know what it's called now, Harrison Bergman or something. So it's about a guy who he was too smart, so the government put a thing in his head so that every random interval of seconds there's a loud noise in his head, so he couldn't focus on any one thought for too long. Like he couldn't dream something up because the loud noise had gone and he'd sort of lose focus of where he was. And so what we've got those built in with like these notifications, like when the phone buzzes, you could be thinking about anything and suddenly you're thinking, oh, who's tweeted me? Who's emailed me?
I'll sit in a coffee shop and I'll have, just through habit, my phone will be next to my laptop when I start writing, and then I realise the first buzz that I get, oh crap, I've left it on.
Yeah.
So I will then mute my phone, put it on airplane mode, and put it into my bag. But
Yeah.
then I'll feel guilty because even though it's, excuse the dog from outside who's keen about this conversation. I'll feel guilty because even though it's not my, it's my right to have that hour of silence, however long it is that I'm going to sit and write. But there's always that guilty thing of, but what am I missing out on? And half the time it's just someone else has been added to a group, or someone's invited me to play Candy Crush or something else that just doesn't add any value to my day.
Yeah, it's you have to like you have to treat it. You have to use it as a treat for yourself, where you can put it on airplane mode and not worry about the rest of the world for a little bit. And the more you can see it as a sort of little vacation, the better. I think the easier.
Yeah, I remember a time when I think it was back a year or two ago when you went to America. I remember you coming back from that, and I think if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong. During that period, you said was one of the first times in ages where you had just shut off everything from sort of the writing, and you let yourself go away and you enjoyed the experience. Yeah. How did you find actually shutting off for that period of time so beneficial to what you do?
I don't really know. I mean, I'm still journaling every day, so I sort of still processing stuff through the words. But I just wasn't. I was aimless for those 2 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Like I had no aim. It was just roll with whatever happens and enjoy the holiday and go swimming, go for long drives, drink lots of beer and that kind of thing. I don't know if it was particularly beneficial to the writing. I don't know. Maybe I came back a little bit more refreshed and ready to go again. Maybe it was worse. Maybe I had lost lots of lost like the trails of stuff I was working on at the time. Who knows? I mean, I do think it's good if you know that's coming, and you can use that as a great deadline. Where you think when it gets to the 14th, that's holiday mode, so I need to clear my table of work now, like before then. So yeah, you can use it as a great sort of deadline motivator. But I mean, it was good. America was a lot of fun. It was my first time over there.
Yeah. Was it Orlando?
Yeah, Orlando. Which I was a bit like, that's like the Butlins of America, though, right? That's not real America, and it's probably not real America. I was like, I don't want to go to Disneyland. I want to go to Austin, Texas, and I want to drive across Route 66 or whatever. But then I got there, and I was like, it's fucking Disneyland. This is amazing. And I really got into it. Yeah, it's so much.
My family are actually out there at the minute, and they've done the whole airboats along the sort of Everglades and picked up crocodiles and stuff. They've done that side of it. As well,
okay. Yeah.
But, looks like a lot of fun. You can still get out into the real Orlando.
Also,
can you imagine the entire state that's a Disney park?
I mean, we did a lot of driving. I'd written about Cape Canaveral in one of my books before, and it was good to actually go there and sort of see that it wasn't too far off actually, just from pictures and stuff I'd written from. And also we went to Tampa. We got to see a bit of the cities, and we did go out of the theme parks. We went to like a little town, but there wasn't really much there. There was no rides. It was a bit strange. So we just went back to Universal Studios, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
How often a week do you write, and what does your writing schedule look like?
I write every day. So the first thing I will do, I will put on some music and I will journal and I'll write about what happened the day before, how I'm feeling about. In fact, so I got into a bit of a bad habit fairly recently, and I was kind of phoning it in. I was going, I did this, and I was like about 2 paragraphs and I was done. But then recently I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this properly. I'm not giving myself time to think and actually process what happened the day before or what I'm planning to do and where my mind's at. And I can sort of usually tell when I'm not keeping my mind in check, when I'm getting irritable at stuff, or I'm just feeling kind of down. I don't really know why, or something eating at me. I'm not too sure why. But if I'm journaling, if I'm genuinely focusing on the journaling and thinking about the words, and I can write about, okay, so I've been feeling this sort of way. Let's just talk about it, like free write it out and work out what's going on. I could write about what I'm excited about in the future, and that will get me pumped up to get creating or doing something. So the journaling is a big part, and I know that if I'm ever phoning it in, I need to cut that out and start actually giving it its due, because it's a massive tool. And I do think journaling, when I started journaling, was really when I started on this journey that's led me to where I am now with the podcast and Hook and Cleaver and the stuff with you, Dan, and Keith and everything. I definitely think that it all started because I was journaling, and I was able to sort of keep myself in check. And it's where I learned to sort of focus on the world and not just. It's where I learned to have my own momentum in the world and not just be sort of thrown around by the world's momentum, if that makes sense.
And is it freehand when you do your journal?
I do it on a website called 750words.com.
So it's all digital.
It's all digital. I don't write fast enough by hand. I know it's messy, or that's not a bad thing. But I do 750 words, and with typing, I can just I'm going to say flap it out. I can tap it out like super quick.
Yeah.
And not to be precious about the words. I don't need to. It's not so much for me to read back and think that's some beautiful journaling. Like, it's more about me. Although some stuff has come out of it, and I was like, that's not too bad. I'm going to use that. But most of the time, it's literally just me trying to work out free writing, 250 words. And what I tend to do is I'll write about what happened, what I'm working on, what I'm excited about. Try to get an idea of where I am in the world at that moment and where I want to be and that kind of thing. And then I copy and paste it all into Evernote, and I've got like an Evernote thing, so I could jump back 6 years ago today and go, oh, I was doing that day. And that's a weird experience to see where your mind was about certain projects or certain things so long ago. I think, in fact, I should look back and see when we first started talking about the other stories and see if I had any inclination that it would be as sort of big as it is.
What we think in January 2016, around that time, February 2016.
Yeah, I remember there's a picture because we had like a Skype call and we talked about it.
Yeah. Oh man, see, I love the idea of journaling, and I've always kind of, I don't know, I guess romanticized it by the idea of doing it freehand and trying to write it out. And I've at the minute I'm dabbling in journaling. I was going to say journalism then. Hell no. I've got one of those 6-minute diaries, which is 3 minutes in the morning, 3 minutes in the evening, and it sort of asks a set of like.
It's the white book, is it? Is
the what? Sorry.
It's that white book. Is that right?
Like, like a grey hardcover.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it asks sort of like what are you motivated for in the morning, and then at the end of the day, it's sort of like what have you done, what have you good deeds, sort of very basic stuff. But I've never, like, I love the idea of that, just being able to plunge into your past and pull that back up. But I've sort of given journaling a go a couple of times, and I don't think I've quite got it, because there's so many things that you're told you should do in the morning when you come down to sort of meditation, when you come down to journaling, affirmations, everything else, and sometimes it can be almost like a bit overwhelming, because I'm very much, I'll get up, I'll make a coffee, and I'll maybe meditate for 5 minutes, but then I'll sort of sit and just get into the writing straight away while my mind's not thinking. I've not quite got the right process yet, I don't think, to get. Well,
so the affirmations and the meditation, I kind of feel like that is part of my personal journaling process. Because I am talking about, well, affirmation is a weird one, isn't it? Because it's like I am made of concrete or whatever. Like some sort of you sort of say something like you are absolutely fantastic or whatever. I don't really write that kind of stuff, but I will like try and be real with myself and say this is working really well, so let's do more of that. The podcast is doing really well, so why not think more about different podcasts you can do or that kind of thing. So I kind of feel like the journaling does do a bit of that. Meditation.
Give yourself actions, or is it literally just a?
No. So I bullet journal now, as well as the normal journal. Bullet journal, but this is more just like a daily to-do list. That's what it's all about. And I started doing that. I don't know. You were doing it, and you were well into it.
About a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I started. Well, this is my third. I do my 3-month, like quarterly books. This is my third one, and they've come to the end of June, so I'll be done with this one soon. And it's been fantastic. Like, just in the sense of making sure I actually get done what I need to get done. Bullet journaling is a fantastic to-do list, but it's it has a different function than normal journaling for me.
Yeah, and why do you? Because you mentioned you write on 750words.com.
Yeah.
Then you copy it all into Evernote. Why not just write it in Evernote?
I don't know, Daniel. I think it's a habit. I think I never used to do the copy into Evernote. That's something I started like 6 years ago, or I think it's maybe 5, 6 years ago. So it always used to just be in 750 words. But 750 words isn't searchable. Maybe it is. I don't know. Maybe I've not really looked at that into it. But also, it's kept on. Now it's kept on 2 servers, and also my Evernote is backed up to my Dropbox, and it's backed up to my backup drives and that kind of thing. So I guess I'm kind of more secure now. But I think it's more than that. I think it's just, I mean, if you go to 750words.com, just have a look at the
Sponsors of the show.
The font, and I don't think they even do it for money, really. They have donations. But if you look at the font, and it's really just pure white text, and it's just a nice experience to write on there. And I think it's just, maybe just that. Maybe I just need that now.
Yeah. Might just be a trigger that's set up that just it's just your process, and that's what you
also, the music's the big thing. I think when you find the right sort of atmospheric music, so there's an album I've been sort of obsessed with for about, I saw the film Swiss Army Man about a year ago. Have you seen it? It's one where Daniel Radcliffe plays a corpse, and Paul Dano is lost on an island, and he finds his corpse, and his corpse like a magic corpse, like he uses for everything, it's like a Swiss Army knife, but he's a dead man, and he uses erect penis as a compass point. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And he pours water into Daniel Radcliffe's dead mouth, and he uses his arm, and it like showers the water like a spring thing. It doesn't, like, it's absurd, but the soundtrack, it's so good. It's by the guys, 2 of the guys from Manchester Orchestra, who are a great band anyway. But the soundtrack, it's all done mainly through vocal noises. So like ba 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 ba, but they layer it up in these sort of crazy, beautiful, beautiful ways. And yeah, I just listen to that. Like it's a great soundtrack for writing to.
Just envelops you and just lets you actually get into the process.
Yeah.
So you journal.
Yeah.
And then what comes next?
Wow. So,
because how long do you journal for?
Try and keep it under 20 minutes. If it gets a bit longer than that, then I start getting a bit like, I'm losing time here. I need to do the other stuff before I go to work. So I haven't been meditating for a long time, but this past couple of days I've been trying it. The only problem is that if I'm up at 5 a.m. and I start meditating, I very naturally want to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Because it's too relaxing. Like, it's just far too relaxing for that time in the morning. So,
meditating for 2 hours.
What I would actually do, is I'll wake up and I'll put the coffee on. The coffee takes about 15 minutes to brew. So in that time, I will leave it. If I'm super tired, I don't mind snoozing until the coffee's brewed. But most of the time, I'll start on the journaling at that point. And then once that's done, I can get the coffee and start writing. In terms of writing, it depends what I'm working on. Right now, I'm doing a writing workshop, and I'm reading what I wrote the day before. It's normally about 1,000 words worth of stuff, and I'm editing that as I go. I normally add about 250 words to that as I'm writing. And then I'll plow through some fresh words, as many as I can in the time available.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your proudest achievement to date?
That's a difficult one.
I mean, you've done a lot of stuff.
That is a difficult one, because I kind of feel like it's something kind of it must be something mundane. I don't think it's because I do look at like Keith. I've got like a trophy thing, like a plaque thing that I keep on the bookshelf. I like to see that every now and again. And the other story is whenever I see the stats on that thing, I'm like, that's pretty cool. But I don't know if it's anything like that. I don't think it's. I don't know. I want to say it's something like completing Sonic the Hedgehog 2 or something. It's one of those. It's something way more mundane than that, because with the other stuff, the creative stuff, it's like it feels like it's more like part of the journey rather than the end point. If that makes sense. It feels like they're great, but the next thing is going to be even better. Just wait. Like, it feels like that. Whereas like we finished something smaller. Maybe it's doing the half marathon, although that really did kill me. I think I could be proud of that.
It's impressive.
I don't know, man. I
haven't done one yet. We'll do one together sometime.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get on the running hype.
Doing another one in September, But I don't know. I think quitting smoking. I was actually quite proud of that. But I used to smoke a long time ago, about 8 years ago now, and I quit that. I think I'm just proud of just getting on with stuff. Like, if I just look back at the past 10 years and I think I'm proud that I got on with stuff. Like, it's been incredibly difficult at times. There's been very many low points, but it doesn't matter. We still got on with stuff and we've still got stuff done. And, that's something to be proud of.
Oh, that would be a beautiful point to end the show, but I have one more question before we get into our quick fire round.
Yeah.
So you're a bit of a goal setter. I know this.
Yeah.
You made me start setting goals. Thank you. It's been very helpful.
Yeah.
What does the rest of your year look like? What are you trying to achieve by the end of 2019?
Well, so I've got a few things really. The main thing is that I want to get a novel that we're writing together done, a short novel, and also another novel that we're writing together. I'd like to get that out. I'd like to...
Just teasing.
Yeah, so this past 2 months, I've also written 2 novellas that I've written about 3 novellas that I'm really, really proud of. I feel like they're my best writing and the best example of what I'm able to do. They're quite short, they're 20,000 words each, but I'd like to find the right home for them, the right sort of publishing home. So I guess I'd like to sell those. I'm not for like a massive amount of money, but I'd like to. I would like to place them in the right place. That's pretty a big goal for me as well.
Nice, fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the quickfire round. So, as this is the first episode, I feel like I probably should explain this. The quickfire round. What I'll be doing is asking all of our guests 10 quickfire questions, which you have a few seconds to just shout whichever answer comes to your head first.
Oh, just so jump in. A proud moment. You forced me into it when we did the interview on self-publishing podcast, because I listened to that for so long and it felt so distant from that podcast, and it felt like my TV, like it wasn't real. It was a thing that was so far away. But
it was surreal.
You put us on that show, and I was really nervous about it. But I think we did really well. I think I was very proud of that actually. So yeah.
Yeah, that interview is actually on YouTube for anyone who wants to check it out. Literally, I think all you have to do is type Hawk and Cleaver into the YouTube search bar, and it comes up as one of the top searches, which is quite cool. But yeah, Shawnee, Sean, and Dave. Johnny, Sean, and Dave.
Shawnee,
John. Shawnee, John, and John. Yeah. No. That was a lot of fun.
Sorry, you were saying about the quickfire round.
Yeah, so quickfire round. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but let's see how you do. Are you ready?
Yeah, I am now.
Cool. Ketchup or barbecue sauce?
Ketchup.
Who's your favourite creator at the moment?
Danger Slater.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs. Oh, fuck. Sorry, Oscar.
Would you rather have video cameras for eyes or laptop keyboards for fingers?
Video cameras for eyes.
Who was the last writer to scare the crap out of you?
Adam Neville.
What was the last film you cried at?
I cry all the time in films. What was the last film I watched? Incredibles 2, probably.
Wow. Emotional?
Oh, yeah.
Red onions or white onions?
White onions.
What podcast couldn't you live without?
The Other Stories.
What's your favourite city?
Favourite city? London, probably, yeah. And
your favourite beer of choice?
I like the Desperados. I know they're kind of like, people... like the McDonald's of beers, but it's like lager and it's got a bit of tequila in it, but it's just whatever, it just hits the spot. No, it's called Desperado.
I can tolerate. I'll tell you that.
Desperado is the only beer that you can tolerate.
Yeah, I'm a cider drinker, so beer doesn't get me, but a Desperado has that certain. It's tequila, right?
Yeah, it's tequila, but it's got a sweetness to it as well. It's just very, very tasty. I just can't get over that stuff.
Fair, good to know. I'll buy you someone next year. Sweet. Final question. Where can our listeners find more of you and your work?
There's 2 places you can go. LukeKondor.com, and that's Kondor with a K. And that's where I'm trying to keep a sort of semi-regular blog, but it's like articles on creativity and that kind of thing. And also just sort of posting about what I'm up to and that kind of thing. But www.hawkandcleaver.com is where me and a few crazy people, we do a lot of stuff. Actually, we make comic books, we make fiction, and we do a lot of podcasts. Our podcast network is growing like crazy,
including this podcast.
Yeah, including this one. Yeah. So it's good to see. I think those two websites are all you need.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the internet, you don't need any other websites.
Just done. Just delete the rest of it. 404 it. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, man. I appreciate it. Glad to have you as the first guest on the show. This will be the legacy that we leave, because there are no other episodes coming after this.
Thank you very much. We've done a lot of podcasts together, and I kind of feel like we are finally getting quite good at it. We are finally figuring it out.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Awesome. Well, thanks again, man, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. I was going to listen anyway, but
cheers. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Great Writers Share podcast. Next week, we'll be joined by the Amazon top 10 author and publisher, Michael Anderley, discussing his publishing company, his mammoth rise to success, and how he fits everything into just 24 hours in his day. It's definitely one not to miss. Don't forget that you can also get early access to every episode of the Great Writers Share podcast and the chance to ask upcoming guests any of your questions just by becoming a patron of the show. All you need to do is visit www.patreon.com/Great Writers Share and support the show for as little as $1 a month. One more time, that's www.patreon.com/Great Writers Share. Until next time.
your ear ever do that? When you're sort of blow your nose, it's like a tiny woman screaming in your ear. Ah! Yeah, it's like a tiny elephant or something.